Hi, my name is Annie Downs. I am an author and a speaker based in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm so excited to be with you today and be talking to you about what it means to be in your life place and in my life place and be in healthy relationships. What does that look like and how do we do that? I think that of all your options today of people to listen to, I am not the smartest by any stretch. I am amazed at what the other speakers have to say and the wisdom they have to bring. But I hope my perspective will maybe teach you something today and give you an opportunity to think through something you've never thought through before. You know, I think the first part of being in a healthy relationship and pursuing healthy relationships is being a healthy person. And I'm not talking about like you've got to go to the gym or you can't eat carbs or any of that jazz. What I'm talking about is, are there opportunities you have or experiences you want to have or things that you like that you should be more involved in that would make you a more well-rounded person? You know, we don't look, when we're looking for people to date or people to marry or people to be in a relationship with, we're not looking for people who are looking to be in a relationship. We're looking for people who have full, interesting lives, right? I mean, I'm 32 and single, and when I meet guys, that's what I look for, is what kind of life are they leading? Not are they looking for a person, right? And so I can think of multiple times in my 20s, particularly 3 times when I was given the opportunity to move to Scotland as a missionary. And I turned down that opportunity all 3 times because I was afraid. I was afraid that leaving the country would mean I would never get married. And that's, number one, that's ridiculous. And number 2, that's a really terrible way to live, to build your whole life around this one piece of your pie, right? I mean, because there is a slice of my pie that is my desire to be married and have a family. But that's only one part of me. There's so many other parts of me, and I wonder how long and how many things I missed and how many seasons I missed when all I was focused on was, where do I need to be in order to meet someone? Instead of like, where do I need to go to have fun? And where do I need to go to do the things I want to do? And where do I want to travel? And where do I want to see? And all those things. And so I think the first step in all of this is you've got to know you. You've got to know you, and you've got to grow to like you, and you have got to pursue the things that you care about. I remember being at the doctor's office a couple of years ago, and the doctor was asking me, this old guy was asking me about being single. And I was like, it's fine, weird, you're my doctor. And he said, have you ever thought about going to the Sierra Club? And I was like, no. And he said, the Sierra Club is like a nonprofit that cleans up on weekends and on weekdays. And he said, I always encourage single people to go to the Sierra Club because you know that you're finding other people who care about the environment, and you're meeting guys who don't work on weekends, and you're meeting guys who have enough time and to set aside to do this. And I was like, that is genius. And so, but that's not the goal to go, right? I mean, he wanted that to be my goal. But I think of a lot of things like that are places I want to go or things that I'm interested in, that's my number one priority, is having a great time, right? Is living a full, active, really fun life. I mean, I went to a Vanderbilt baseball game last night here in Nashville and sat with some friends, and it was freezing cold, and we had a great time. And I thought, this is who I want to be. I want to be the girl that has a really full, fun life that has space in it for God to bring a spouse and for me to get to date people, you know. So that's the first thing I would say for sure, is if you want to be in a healthy relationship, pursue being a healthy person. Secondly, I think there's a lot to learn from friendships. I really think, I don't know that I've ever had a best guy friend that I haven't had feelings for, but maybe that's possible. So what I'm saying is, I don't know that you can have a best friend of the opposite sex that lasts real long, but I think it's really important to have friends of the opposite sex, that it teaches you how to interact, right? I mean, at the core of it, having guy friends, for me, reminds me and teaches me how to act around single guys. I mean, that's all there is to it. But in friendships, I think you also need to remember that there are boundaries. Man, I'm such a big fan of boundaries. I believe in that, the Bible says that boundary lines have fallen in pleasant places. And I think that's true. I think that we need to look at our lives and go, I love my friends and they can have this much of my time, but I'm going to have a boundary. Or I love hanging out with this guy, but he's not saying that he wants to date me, so I need to have this boundary here. I just think that's super important to do for yourself and for the other people you're in relationship with, to really be a boundary setter. Boundaries make people feel safe. And I want that for the people that are in relationship with me, to feel like we have safe boundaries, right? Also, another thing I learned recently from some friends of mine, some guys, actually I listened to some college guys talking at a high school girls small group. And one of the things they said that has stuck with me is, you end up being like your 3 best friends. Who are you around the most? And is that who you want to be? And it kind of took me back, for starters, because they're college students and having more wisdom than I ever did in college. But secondly, the idea that those people that are closest to you are helping shape you is really important in a relationship. I mean, I think that's the beauty of relationship. That's why we have each other, is because we're meant to sharpen each other and mold each other to some degree, right? And so while you're pursuing being this healthy person who likes the things you want to like and attends the things you want to attend and is out to have a really good time, like a really godly, good life, you also have brought these friends in and close friends in that will help you to shape into who you want to be. And when it comes to real relationships, man, like dating and marriage, that I can't wait. I can't wait till that's my story. But until then, if you're single, we have to be brave enough to go on dates. Girls have to be brave enough to say yes, even if we aren't like in love at first ask. Boys need to be brave enough to ask. I mean, isn't dating just a deeper call to courage in some ways, right? Because you have to go out of what is easy. And for me, like the buddy, best friend, yeah, dude, that is so easy for me. For some people, dating's really easy and friendships aren't as easy. But for me, I was always more inclined to be someone's buddy and then fall in love with them later, right? And never date them because I was their buddy. And as I've grown older, and especially through my 20s, as I learned the importance of meeting new people and the experiences of going on dates, and I just think, I think I've learned that those are the right steps, right? Those are the right steps toward who we want to be and toward what it means to be in a healthy relationship. And like, above all, hear me say above all, I'm not an expert in any of those things. I'm not an expert on being cool with liking whatever you want to like and pursuing a healthy personal life. I'm not an expert on friendships. I'm not an expert on dating, relationships, or marriage. I'm just trying, right? I'm just trying to be those things to get to the next place in relationship, the next place in the kind of life I want to lead. No, my life is not built in such a manner that everything is pointing toward getting married anymore. It totally was in my 20s. It was like, I'll have this job for a while. I'll do this for a while, but it's all in hopes that my husband was around the corner. And that's why I said no to things. When I turned 30, I had the opportunity to move to Scotland again. And a pastor asked me to come help them start a church for college students. And I remember thinking, I said no in my 20s because I thought I'd get married in my 20s. If I say no in my 30s and I still don't get married in my 30s, I will have wasted 2 decades. And I don't want to be that girl. And so I said yes, and I moved to Scotland for 6 months, and I loved it, and it molded and shaped me and changed me in ways I could have never imagined. When I came back to Nashville, my life was totally different because of what I learned and experienced there. And I don't regret it at all. And I didn't miss out. We've got to remember that when we're pursuing healthy relationships with ourselves, right, with other people and with God, you aren't going to miss out. You aren't going to miss out. Because if what you want most is what God wants for you most, you're not going to miss out. I just don't think you are. And I think you can have hope in that. That no matter what age you are right now, the idea that marriage is the only end goal and everything should be built towards that, I worry that you're going to miss out on things. Maybe you're healthier than I was. Probably you are. But for me in my 20s, that's what that meant. So those are my thoughts. If we were sitting at coffee, I'd have told you the same thing. Pursue healthy relationship with God. Pursue healthy relationship with other people. And really grow to be a healthy person. You know, I've often heard said that, I'm sure you've heard this too, like, be the kind of person you're looking for in a relationship. There's a better quote. Probably one of the other speakers gave you a better quote than that. But I want you to pursue that because that's who you want to be, not because that's the relationship you want to be in. So that is my big encouragement to you today, is pursue being who you want to be, and the relationships will come. So thanks so much. I look forward to interacting with you online, on Twitter, on Facebook. This is empty. I just needed something to do with my hands. So you're welcome. It was apple cider. I don't drink coffee, and I am dairy-free. So Starbucks doesn't even have almond milk. So it's apple cider. It's actually delicious. Hope y'all have a great day. I have big hopes for what God's going to do in your life through the Quarter Life Conference, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
Hi, I'm Pam Farrel.
And I'm Bill Farrel. And we want to talk with you about a subject that's really dear to our hearts, because we know everybody's interested in relationships. And the reason why we are interested in relationships is because God is interested in relationships. In John chapter 17, verse 3, it's the only place in the Bible where salvation is defined. And it is defined as a relationship. Jesus was praying to his Father, and he said, "This is eternal life, that they might know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ who you have sent." So salvation itself is described as a relationship. And we know that all of you in the audience, you are in friendships, you're in work relationships, you have family relationships, and some of you are involved in romantic interests. And so the better you are at relationships, the more you're going to like your life.
But if you haven't noticed, men and women are completely, totally different. And so how do you understand what's going on in a guy's mind if you're a girl? Or how do you understand what's going on in a woman's mind if you're a guy? Well, in our book, Single Men Are Like Waffles, Single Women Like Spaghetti, we try to, give you a little glimpse into how God wired us and those differences and how they can be used to help all your relationships.
And we know that the differences between men and women are deliberate. Genesis 1:27 tells us that we are created in the image of God, and that making us in his image, he made us male and female. And most people, they accept that. We're different. But most people have no idea what to do with the differences. So Pam and I went looking for a word picture that we could use that would help men and women know what to do with these differences.
So what does it mean that men are like waffles and women like spaghetti?
So let me start with the men. If you were to diagram the way a typical man processes information in life, it looks like the top of a waffle. There's a bunch of boxes. All those boxes are separated from one another by walls. And the way we as men operate is the first issue in life goes in the first box, the second issue goes in the second box, the third issue goes in the third box, and so on. And we as men, we spend time in one box at a time and one box only. So when a man is at work, he is at work. When a man is in the garage tinkering on his automobile, he is in the garage tinkering on his automobile. When a man is watching TV,
hello,
he is watching TV. We do one thing at a time and one thing only. Now, as we mature, we do jump boxes quicker than we used to, so at times we can kind of imitate multitasking, but in reality, we've just learned to jump from one box to another faster than we used to. And because of this single focus that us men bring to life, we are problem solvers by nature. We like to go into a box, figure out what the problem is, assign a solution to it, and then move on. And if we get to a box and we see what the problem is and we don't know what the solution is, we just move on. Because we cannot possibly think of a reason to spend time on a problem that we don't have an answer for. And for part of life, this is really valuable. In the workplace, the community, the church, your friendship circle needs that single focus that men bring to life. But it can create some tension in important relationships because you ladies just don't process like waffles.
That's right. I mean, social sciences say that men compartmentalize and women integrate, but nobody really talks like that. So if you look at the way our mind was wired by God with that estrogen, it's kind of like one noodle laying on a plate of spaghetti. And if you follow that noodle around that plate, it looks like it touches pretty much every other noodle on the plate. And that's the same way we women process life, is we travel through life making emotional connections to the people and things that matter most to us. And so by nature, we're really great at multitasking. I mean, look around at your friends, or remember back, what's your mom like? I mean, she'd be on the phone with her girlfriend, life's all falling apart, she's watching Oprah, there's Dr. Phil, and he's saying, how's that working for you? So she's like, how's that working for you, honey? Yeah, well, maybe you should tune in to that conference for 20-somethings. I hear there's lots of good help there. At the same time, she write her Christmas card list and her grocery list and her to-do list for her husband and her 8 kids, and she's telling the kids in sign language to quit fighting, can't you see I'm on the phone? Got to load in the washer, load in the dryer, cooking dinner, opening and shut the oven door with her foot. Yeah, we girls are amazing at multitasking. I mean, it is a gift to the family, to the church, to your friendships, to the workplace, to the community. That multitasking thing, it really comes in handy. But sometimes in the area of relationships, that multitasking thing can really drive the guys crazy.
Yeah, I mean, ladies, understand, we admire this about you, but we really don't get it. So when you have conversations with us that sound like this, it gets a little confusing. Hey, how's your car running? I thought about your car today because, I drove by that car, that car shop where you always talk about. Because, I was on my way to buy a new outfit because I found this outfit that I knew was going to look really good on me because it was my color. Because last year we learned all about what colors look good on you, what colors don't look good on you, and I discovered that this was in my palette of colors, and so I knew I was going to look good, and my confidence level was going to be up, and when my confidence level is up, I do better at work, I do better in all my friendships, and so, but you probably don't really care about it, but it was the color that Mrs. Obama wore recently in the inauguration. I don't know if you watched any of that, but she had kind of a yellowish dress, and it looked great on her, and I think it's kind of funny that I have kind of the same color palette as the First Lady. I think that's kind of funny, but anyway, but you're probably not really into all that, but I know you like sports. So do you remember the last Winter Olympics? Remember the German team? They had that black outfit with the big yellow stripe on it. Well, it was that same yellow color. And I thought it was really sad in that Olympics that those 3 ladies were going around the ice together, and that one fell down at the end. And I know they won the race, but it reminded me that a lot of our friends have been falling down a lot in their lives. And do you think, as friends, we could just pray for our friends right now? Do you think?
And while we're praying, what he's really asking is,
what about my car? Like, we thought you brought it up for a reason. We can't figure out what it is.
He's been frantically jumping boxes trying to keep up with you. Doesn't have a clue where you're going.
And ladies, there are a couple other things you need to know about guys if you're going to communicate well with us. The first is that some of the boxes on our waffle, there's thoughts rolling around inside there, but they don't translate into sentences. So sometimes men just make noises. Ooh, woo, yeah.
Wah.
And so 2 men passing each other will look at each other and go, hey. See, that's a significant bonding moment for 2 men. Like, we're good with that. And the other thing you need to factor into your communication with men is that some of the boxes on every man's waffle are completely blank.
Absolutely nothing going on.
There are no thoughts, and there are no words, and we as men, we just park in those blank boxes periodically. I know you've seen it before.
And when they're in that blank box, girls, we get like radar, and we ask the dreaded question, so, what you thinking?
Which is a really difficult question for us because we tried telling you the truth. We said nothing. And your response tends to be,
You can't be doing nothing. I mean, that's impossible. You have to be thinking something. And then they tried to tell us, and we're like, oh, that took too long. You're just delaying. You don't want to tell me what you're really thinking. But now you know what they're really thinking is
nothing. And so in working in relationships with men and women, we need to learn how to accept the differences. Romans 15:7 says, accept one another then, just as Christ accepted you, in order to bring praise to God. And so when you have an attitude that you're going to accept these differences as God-given, all your relationships are going to work better because you're cooperating with the way God made us, and the praise of God settles on your home, and you get His supernatural help for all of your friendships, for all of your work relationships, and all the relationships that matter to you.
That's right. And, the whole area of cooperating with God and the way that we're wired, His testosterone, your estrogen, that's a smart idea to accept one another. And it can play out in a couple of really simple ways. In Single Men Are Like Waffles, Single Women Like Spaghetti, we talk about 10 differences and how to make those differences work for you. Let's just hit a couple of highlights. One is that men and women, we relieve stress differently. The way we women relieve stress is we talk our way through stress. Like when I'm stressed out, my mom knows it, my sister knows it, my best friend knows it, the clerk at Walmart will know it. But that's not how guys process stress.
Now, us guys, we like to go to our favorite easy boxes to rest and recharge.
It's kind of like a battery and a battery recharger. If you look at a battery sitting in a battery recharger, what does it look like it's doing?
Nothing.
But it's doing something. It's recharging. And so God kind of helped us girls out so we could recognize these favorite recharger boxes of men, in that most of them are actually shaped like boxes when you think about it. The TV screen is shaped like a box. Xbox is shaped like a box. An iPad is shaped like a box. Football field is shaped like a box. A basketball court is shaped like a box. Refrigerator is shaped like a box. In fact, the way to a man's heart is definitely still through his stomach. And you give them a good meal, their stress level goes down.
And see, as guys, we get frustrated with the way women relieve stress because we think there's a point to every conversation. So when ladies that we work with or in our friendship circle, they start talking, we're looking for the point so that we can give the answer, give the solution, and think that will lower stress.
Because you're problem solvers. You want to help solve problems.
When in reality, they just need to download everything. Mm-hmm. And once things are downloaded and connected to people they care about, their stress level comes down.
So a lot of times, guys, it will just help if you ask a simple question. Especially if you're dating a girl, just ask her, okay, is this one of those conversations, or do you want me to help with problem solving here? You know, the conversations are like, oh yeah, oh baby, She just wants understanding. So sometimes that's all you need to do is just give a little TLC. You don't have to solve her problems.
And it may help you to know that this is actually a physical difference between men and women. See, the part of the brain that monitors verbal interaction, it's actually larger in women than in men. And women, when they're little girls, they learn early in life to influence through words. So guys, they have been practicing this and doing this since they were tiny. And when they were working on influencing with words, we were wrestling on the ground and playing in the dirt. And so often we feel like we're behind in relationships because the ladies have been working on the verbal side a lot longer than we have. And you know, once you get past a certain age, you can't walk up to people and go, hey, how you doing? You have to learn how to communicate better. And so, guys, this is just a learned skill. If you want to get together, if you want to get along with the females in your life that you interact with, just learn how to listen, let them download their files, and be amazed as they think you're a very trustworthy individual simply because you gave them the opportunity to share.
And here's a clue. We have a list of the top 10 things that singles find attractive in the opposite gender. And number 2 on the list is a good sense of humor. So if all else fails, tell a joke, and that will relieve both of your stress. And it's a very attractive trait. You might wonder what are some of the other things on the list. Well, number 3 on the list is they're hard workers. Yeah, a man with a job, kind of attractive. And what guys are looking for, number 2 on their list was beautiful or physically fit. That was important to them. But number 1 on the list is probably the most important, and that is they have a growing relationship with God. And that's something everybody can do something about, is just to dig into your Bible and spend time with God. In fact, I have a great friend, Renee Fisher, and she writes wonderful devotions. You can jump into her 20-somethings blog and grow with God every day. Lastly, we just want to share that men and women, we romance differently.
Because we know that everybody's involved in relationships, but some of you are going to be romantically interested in another individual. And we approach romance very differently. So guys, the way women approach romance is through connections. Anytime you make a significant connection into her life, she's going to interpret it as romantic. Like we know of one guy that he wanted to do something nice, and he's like the rest of us. He kind of starts off all thumbs when it comes to romance. And he got this idea. So he took flowers out of his neighbor's yard, wrapped them together in a bouquet with duct tape. Now, stolen flowers and duct tape don't usually show up on a list of really romantic things.
More like diamonds, flowers.
But amazingly, the lady he was with saw this as an expression of his heart. And so she complimented him on doing this. Said, "You did this just for me?"
And that was smart of her, because then he's going to want to go back to that romance box. If she would have said, "Serious? Duct tape?" He just put a big X in that box. He's not going back to that romance box anytime soon, because you hurt his heart.
And so, men, the key is making connections into her life. So if you listen for her favorite things, if she likes to talk and you give her a phone call in the middle of the day, just to say, "I just called to say hi," that'll make a big impression on her. If she likes flowers, send her flowers. If she likes chocolate, send her chocolate. If she likes to be active, invite her out on a bike ride or a run. Whatever it is that she likes to do, if you remember it and you do something about it, she will interpret it as romantic. And when you give her attention, because most women want to know, am I important to other people?
More important than your money, more important than your time, more important than your job. She's kind of giving you a little bit of a test to see if she has value in your life.
And so it doesn't have to be expensive. I mean, if you have a lot of money and you want to spend it, feel free. But it doesn't have to be expensive, because the key to romancing a woman is to make connections into her heart and touch the things that are important to her.
In fact, on our lovewise.com website, we have a list of free or nearly free dates, recession romance dates, we call them. And so it's not about the money, it's about you taking the time and the effort to romance. And girls, if we want to romance a guy, now you know that lowering his stress is pretty important to him. In fact, I was speaking to thousands of singles at a conference, and I said to the girls, what these guys want is a low-maintenance woman, a woman who will lower his stress and raise his ability to succeed. I got a standing ovation by the guys in that audience. And so when you're thinking about romancing the man that's important to you, what you want to do is then tie together his favorite easy boxes. And all of our sons have played football. And so, box number 1 for Bill might be 2 tickets to a football game. Bill loves to cook. He's a great cook. And so box number 2 might be, going to his favorite restaurant. And box number 3 might be one of his favorite activities, like basketball or
Walking on the beach or kayaking.
Right.
Any of those.
So think about what is relaxing to the man that's important to you and just string them together. And that will be romantic to him. Sometimes it's something really simple, like it could be just curling up next to him and watching the football game and only talking during the commercials. That might be romantic. Men are like waffles and like spaghetti. You can use those differences for all of your relationships.
And ladies and gentlemen, we know relationships are important to all of you. And there's been a lot of hurt and disappointment in our world when it comes to relationships, but you can make a difference. As you raise your skill level in being good coworkers, good friends, and good to the people that you care about, you're going to become a very valuable asset in every circle you run in. So raise your skill level and enjoy the journey.
Well, hey guys, we are Justin and Trisha Davis, and we're really excited to be here with you for the Quarter Life Conference. We have a huge passion for 20-somethings and just honored to be able to share this time with you. I'd say we're coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee, but this is really a tape delay. We're not live. We're in our dining room at 10 o'clock at night. So, but we're live for you right now, and we're excited to be there. So I'm on staff at a church here in Nashville called Crosspoint Church, and Trish and I lead a ministry called Refine Us Ministry that's really just an overflow of our own story. And we're excited to share with you part of our story and really some wisdom. Well, the jury's still out on that, but we hope to be wisdom from really our last 18 years of married life together, and what we hope God can do through you guys as you kind of launch out into His plan for your life.
That makes us sound really old. 18 years.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. Our 16-year-old son is closer to your age than we are, so we are
that's
old.
awful.
Yeah.
But Justin and I met in college, and it was there that we fell in love with each other, and also fell in love with this idea that God would use us as a married couple to partner with Him to change the world through the local church. And so we got married in 95, and just 4 months later found out that we were expecting our first son. And so Micah came 5 days after our first year anniversary. So here we are, 21 and 22 by the time our son is born. And so in our 20s, there was a lot of life we were trying to figure out. We were learning how to be adults. We were learning how to go from students to full-time work to married life and to parents. And so there was so much packed in those first couple of years of our 20s that there's a lot that we could talk about. But we really want this time to not be, not about, hey, don't do this, but more about what we've discovered in our journey along the way.
So we go into ministry kind of wide-eyed and just really anticipating and optimistic. And the longer that we get into ministry, the more success that we had outwardly. We had some amazing student ministries, but Trisha and I kind of drifted into this place where we became great ministry partners, and we kind of forgot how to be great marriage partners, and we just started drifting away from each other. And in 2002, we started a church in Indianapolis, Indiana, and with this hope of helping people who were far from God experience a relationship with Him. And we started out with no people and no money and no building, and just 3 years later, we had just an amazing journey to look back on as God brought us people and brought us resources and brought us resources to buy a building. And it was just an incredible time of ministry and an incredible time of looking down and kind of seeing God at work. At the same time, there was a deterioration in my life, my spiritual life, and in our marriage relationship that culminated on October 9th, 2005, when I came home and told Trish that I was done. I didn't want to be married anymore. I didn't want the marriage that we had. I think we had this vision that longer married would equal a better marriage. And our marriage didn't get better as it went on. It got worse. We got more irritable, less patient, less forgiving with one another. And I just wanted out. And not only did I want out, I was having an affair with Trisha's best friend. And I wanted to be with that person. And it was really through the next couple of weeks that God began to break my heart. And I started going to counseling, and Trish and I were separated for 2.5 months. And God really began to work in our life and work in our heart, and to really discover why we drifted so far apart. And I think it's so easy at times to look at something like an affair and think that was the problem. And what we've discovered over the last 8 years removed from that situation is that it was really a symptom of much deeper issues in our marriage. And so God really kind of used that event, used that unbelievably hard time in our life to rediscover who we were in Him and to rediscover who He created us to be as a couple. And so a couple of the things that we want to talk to you about today are just kind of life lessons that we've learned over the last 8 years as we've rediscovered grace and forgiveness and just kind of the work that God longs to do in each of us.
Yeah, I mean, when we start dreaming about our lives, whether that's in marriage or your career or kind of what your future looks like, we don't typically say, well, we want to dream for failure. You know, when Justin and I stood before each other and said our vows, I know that Justin wasn't thinking in the back of his mind, 10 years into marriage, I'm going to have an affair. It's not something that we dream for ourselves. And that was partly Justin and I just not understanding really what marriage was supposed to look like. And we didn't know the meaning of marriage. We really were just kind of going off of what we thought we should be doing for each other and what marriage should be looking like. And so we just thought, we had convinced ourselves, even when we were dating, we were very honest with each other, and we knew we weren't going into our marriage relationship virgins, but we just thought, okay, if we stay pure with each other while we're engaged, then we get married, and then, we'll be good. Like everything will go up and to the right because we're being obedient to God and we're doing it exactly like He said. And so when the affair happened, that totally bursted my bubble of what I thought God intended our marriage relationship to be. And there were issues along the way. We went from being in this extraordinary journey and being for each other to this place, well, if you're not going to change, then I'm not going to change. I'm not going to do this until you choose to do that. And we went from being partners to really being enemies, that we just got on each other's nerves and we could do no right. And we just weren't for each other. We thought the worst of each other in the small things and in the big things. And so here my worst nightmare had come to pass. And the gift in that process is that when you lose everything, it gives God great room to show up. And what we had come to recognize that I often think trips us up in our 20s is we And partly it's because of people saying this to you that, oh, when you get that job, then you'll arrive. When you get married, then you'll figure out how not to be a selfish person, and you'll figure out sexual intimacy will just come naturally because it's okay now. And none of that was true. And so we knew what marriage shouldn't be, what was God's design for marriage. And we realized that all of us, single, married, have this desire to be fully known. And if we can't be fully known by a person, then we start to try and feel fully known by our identity in work, or our identity with friends, or our identity in the things we do, because it's a longing that God has put in our hearts. But what we realized in the context of marriage is that God's passion for marriage is for us to be known. Intimacy, the word intimacy itself means to be fully known. But what does that mean? And as we got into scripture and really started praying about this, we realized that our desire to be fully known isn't one-dimensional. That in a marriage relationship, we desire to be fully known emotionally, which all of us are pretty good at that, spiritually, and physically. That Justin and I had lived in this place where we compartmentalized everything and just kind of felt like none really had to do with the other, but that the physical, for most of us when we're single, we beat each other up because we feel like there's something wrong with us, that we struggle with sexual sin, but that's a gift from God. So just figuring those things out, of recognizing that there's nothing that Justin and I could do or be for each other, that the first 10 years of our marriage was the best we could create, but God's true desire was for us to be fully known by Him, fully known by Him, so that we could be fully known by each other, not in just the little things that we should be, but in all facets, both emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
And I think, for me, one of the things I wanted to share with you guys today, because I think, as I think about, I'm 39, that's really depressing, but I think, the affair happened when I was 30 years old, and so, 31, I guess, but the affair was really a culmination of decisions that I made when I was 21 and 23 and 25 and 27. I lived for the majority of my life with fear and insecurity kind of guiding me. I wanted to be accepted, and I wanted to be loved. And I had this fear that if I was fully known, like Trisha was talking about, if she really knew me, she wouldn't love me. And that fear, it completely shut me down at times. It completely caused me to withhold truth at times. It completely caused me to act a certain way or try to achieve certain things so that people would like me, so that people would accept me, so that people would think more highly of me. And one of the things I just want to share with you, and I think I wish I had 2 hours to talk to you about how to really live this out, is that God loves you exactly where you're at. That God loves you right where you are, and He created you like He created you. And He has no desire for you to live with fear or insecurity. And it's as we allow ourselves to be fully known by God, it's as we allow ourselves in the marriage relationship to be fully known by our spouse, that we're able to defeat fear. We're able to overcome insecurity, and we're really able to find our identity in Christ. And man, if you guys could figure that out, if you guys could live that out in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, and your 50s are going to be some rich, rich years with God. And I know for many of you, you struggle with insecurity. And for many of you, you struggle with fear. And it's this aspect of allowing God to fully know you, to give all of that to God. Jesus says, "Come to me, those of you who are weary and heavy burden, and I'll give you rest." And that's our greatest desire for you, is that you could use maybe some of the failures that we've experienced to allow yourself to be inspired to say, "Okay, God, I want you to fully know me. And here's my fear. Here's my insecurity. I give it all to you. Would you heal me? Would you make me whole?" And God will answer that prayer. Thank you guys so much for this time together with you. We really appreciate it, and we're praying for you.
Hi, I'm Gary Thomas. Normally I like to do a little bit of humor to sort of win you over before I get started, but I only have a limited amount of time, and I'm passionate about what I want to talk about. If I'm speaking to your demographic about relationships, the one thing I would like to impress on you, perhaps as much as anything else, is how crucial it is that you make a wise choice about who you marry. If you make a wise choice about marriage, it's sort of like the gift that keeps on giving. You will bless yourself. You will bless your future children. You will bless the church. You will bless your family for years to come from the fruit of that one decision. If you make a foolish choice, it's like a bad investment that keeps on taking. It will suck the life out of you. It will suck the joy out of your life. It will hamper you and hinder you. Your kids will pay the price, perhaps for the rest of your life. This is one decision that you really need to make on the right basis. And what concerns me so much is that I see so many Christian singles getting married for roughly the same reason as non-Christian singles. Sexual chemistry, romantic infatuation, or at least strong romantic attraction, and perceived relational happiness. The world gets married for mainly that basis, and Christians get married for that basis, in large part because we don't even think to question it. Our culture has just given us, that's the message. You fall in love, you desire to be with each other, and so you decide to get married. Those have been shown not to last. Let's just take romantic attraction. We know now from the study of neurology, those that study our brain, the infatuation has a lifespan of about 12 to 18 months at the outset. And even then, an infatuation under the scope will look demonstrably different at 14 months than, say, at 6 months. Marriage is not about sharing an infatuation. We could take sexual chemistry. There was a well-known actress in a popular cable television show some years back who wrote a sex manual basically for couples, and she was extolling the virtues of her husband in this area. She called him an artist in bed. 9 months after the book was released, she announced that she and her husband were getting separated, and then eventually they got a divorce. That's not enough to hold a couple together. And if you're just looking at relational happiness, how many couples get married thinking they have such a good time together, but then they get bored? And that's what happens to so many marriages. In all honesty, a lot of marriages are brought down by boredom. And there's a simple reason for that. None of us are so enthralling that we can keep somebody enchanted for 5 or 6 decades. Maybe the funniest or the most brilliant can keep somebody enthralled for 2 or 3 years, but I think even if you're Jerry Seinfeld or Tina Fey, after a few years, your spouse has heard your stuff. See, the problem with simply looking at romantic attraction and sexual chemistry and relational happiness as the main things that would cause you to get married are that they're small-minded reasons to get married. And frankly, those small-minded reasons are going to get boring to us. They won't hold a marriage for 5 or 6 decades. We need something that's longer lasting. We need something that will go the distance. Small lives can't sustain a big marriage, and yet most people make marriage on small-minded concerns. Let me suggest an entirely different reason to get married. I think a much better reason to get married. It's Matthew 6:33. It's buried in the heart of the Sermon on the Mount. Most people wouldn't consider it a marriage verse, but when you apply it to marriage, I think it's very powerful. When Jesus says this, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you as well." Jesus doesn't say, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, except when you're choosing someone to marry. Then seek first sexual chemistry, romantic attraction, perceived relational happiness, marry them, and then all these things will be added unto you as well. Do you trust Jesus? Do you believe Jesus? Do you think he knows what he's talking about here? I can say after almost 3 decades of marriage that what Jesus says is as true of marriage as it is in any other arena of life. If I'm seeking first the kingdom of God, that alone is pouring drama and excitement and purpose and fulfillment into my life. If my wife and I are pursuing God's kingdom, we have shared partnership, we have new visions. If one ministry is accomplished, God is birthing another one in our heart. It keeps us excited. It keeps us united in a common purpose that so many marriages fail at. If we're seeking first God's righteousness, we're growing out of those pathetic little character traits that sabotage so many marriages. Things like resentment and bitterness and a lack of forgiveness. We're opening up our hearts to the work of the Holy Spirit to become new people so we can actually grow in respect for each other. We can appreciate each other more because we become more mature. If you marry someone basically for their physical beauty, that's something that is guaranteed to fade. It's almost impossible to imagine when you're enthralled with someone in their 20s and they seem larger than life in their beauty, but the day will come, if you don't die, that they're going to resemble, not that far off, their grandmother or their grandfather. It happens to all of us. But here's the exciting thing. Godliness becomes more attractive through the years. Wisdom gets wider and you'll be blessed even more with it. Kindness goes deeper. Grace strengthens its reach. It doesn't lose it. And so if you base your marriage on having someone with whom you can seek God's kingdom together, who you can grow in righteousness together, as you grow in worship, as you grow in your passion for God's kingdom, your marriage will become more important to you, not less. And yet, though this is the case, I even talk to Christians sometimes who are contemplating marrying someone who isn't even a believer. I just want to ask you, do you even begin to understand what marriage is all about? 1 John 4:19 tells us that we love because he first loved us. We don't love out of the goodness of our hearts. We don't love out of the brilliance of our own ability to show affection and to sustain it over the course of a life. John is very clear. We love because he first loved us. If you marry someone who doesn't know the Lord, who doesn't sense God's love, who doesn't experience God's love, you're marrying someone who will not be capable of loving you. He or she won't have the Holy Spirit within them to forgive you as God would have you be forgiven, to show you the grace to challenge you. If you marry someone who's not a believer, rather than marrying somebody who might confront you in your sin and keep you from making a mess of your life, you married somebody who might encourage you in your sin or join you in your sin. You're also marrying someone who's likely to be ruled by their emotions and by their passions, even by their temptations, and not ruled by the Holy Spirit. Marriage calls us into the deepest depths of intimacy. It's one of the things I love about marriage. You get to know somebody like you've never known them before. Do you want to get that vulnerable with somebody who isn't ruled by the Holy Spirit? Do you want to open up your heart to somebody who doesn't know how to forgive you and accept you as God has forgiven and accepted them? Do you eventually want to put yourself in a place, you want to put your kids in a place with somebody who isn't growing in their understanding and wisdom of Scripture and opening up their heart to be convicted by the Holy Spirit? I can tell most of you women out there that most of the changes I have made in my marriage haven't been because of my wife confronting me and me being convicted and changing. There have been a few of those. Far more often, it's times of prayer or worship where God himself convicts me. And how I'm treating my wife is more about me and the Lord than it is even about me and my wife. That, I believe, is a platform for real change. That's why in my book, The Sacred Search, the subtitle is this: what if it's not about who you marry, but why? You have to understand the why of marriage before you can even begin to answer the question of who to marry. If you think marriage is just about sharing an infatuation and wanting to sleep with someone sexually, well, if the sexual chemistry is high, if the romantic attraction is there, if you think that's what marriage is about, and those two things are present, boom, it's a fit. You go ahead and get married. But if you think marriage is about a shared spiritual partnership, raising a family, working through conflict, learning to communicate, helping each other to grow in righteousness and become who God created you to be, to finish the purpose for which God has put you here on this earth, you might look for someone entirely different. Now, maybe you will become infatuated with this person, and maybe you won't have that high degree of infatuation, but you won't marry him or not marry him because of that infatuation. You'll marry them because you respect who they are. You believe God is active in their life, and you're eager to share that experience with them. So remember, it's not about who you marry as much as why you marry. The who matters enormously. But if you don't ask the why question first, you won't even know who makes a wise who. No decision will affect you as much as who you decide to spend the rest of your time with. Second to your decision to follow Jesus Christ and accept him as your Lord and Savior. So I implore you, this is not a time for sentimental foolishness. This is not a time to be carried away by romantic fantasies. This is a time to think through your choice as deeply as you have thought through anything, to be prayerful, to pursue counsel, and to trust Jesus, that when he says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, he's helping you make the wisest choice you could ever make, especially when it comes to who you marry. Thanks for listening.
Hello, Quarter Life Conference. My name is Joy Eggerichs, and I have a division of Love and Respect that I run called Love and Respect Now. My parents started Love and Respect, which is a marriage ministry, and I directed their conferences for a number of years and then decided that I wanted to get this message to my generation of 18 to 35-year-olds to try and help people with their relationships now, because so many people that came to my parents' conferences would say, why didn't we know this 20 years ago? If only we knew then what we know now. And that stuck with me. I went through a bit of a breakup. And during that time, I really was like, wow, we need to figure this out on the early end. So now I, as I said, have my division called Love and Respect Now, and I was honored to be asked to share with you all one thing I would tell 20-somethings about relationships, and that would be to do as I say, not as I do. I'm not married. But no, I mean, we all are in this process of figuring it out, whether we're married or single. Relationships is always, it's just always going to be a point of navigation for us, and we can always be improving, whether that's learning about our partner or learning about ourselves. And one of the things that I have noticed that I've spoken about quite often to my age group, because I'm so familiar with it, is just putting people into boxes and labeling people. So I'm sure you guys have never heard, the phrase, guys are jerks, or women are crazy. I'm sure none of you have ever said that, but I have, and I hear it all the time. And generally, you step back and you go, well, there's probably 1 or 2 or 3 guys that have been jerks, or there's 1 or 2 or 3 women that have been a little crazy. And so then we start making these generalizations, but then we talk about it with our friends, and then it permeates kind of our being, and we give off this air that we truly do think that all men are jerks or all women are crazy. And when people are labeled long enough, they kind of start to live into that. I mean, I know I've even doubted my own craziness because I feel like I've been labeled. Maybe I am a little bit, but I don't think it's effective in the long run for us communicating as husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends. And so I just want to encourage people and myself, when I make those blanket statements, to step back and go, is it someone specific that's hurt me? And to maybe even make sense of why they hurt me, I'm now putting this label on them. So I encourage you to think about that. I think that will be huge if we can step back and be conscientious of the labeling that we're giving to the people who have wounded us. And so one of the reasons that I started Love and Respect Now, besides the fact that I heard so many people saying, I wish I knew then what I know now, is the fact that I really believe that my parents' message, this is the book that my father wrote, Love and Respect, and this is another book my dad wrote called The Language of Love and Respect, which I actually like better. But the reason I want us to start learning these principles now is because my dad does put us into categories. And some people are like, oh, well, your dad's labeling men and your dad's labeling women and saying that all women are this way and all men are that way. No, you obviously haven't read the book. Actually, he's just looking at social science and the research that we've done and trying to go, yeah, these are some general things that we've heard from wives and some general things that we've heard from husbands. And now we're trying to help you navigate those things. You don't have to fit into all those categories. My dad doesn't fit into all the categories. My mom doesn't fit into the categories. I don't fit into all the categories. But the beautiful part is that we can get in tune with the fact that we're different. And as you read this, you might notice something about your boyfriend or your husband or your father or your brother or your mother or your girlfriend or your wife or your sister that you go, oh, That makes sense. It's not to label people, to put people in boxes, but it's to understand them at a deeper level. So I'm on this mission to go, let's unpack what this whole love and respect message is about. Because it's based off of Ephesians 5:33, which says husbands are to love their wives and wives are to respect their husbands. And I know I struggled for a long time. I'm like, what's the difference? Doesn't respect have to be earned, you know? And as I've dug into this, I've realized that there really is a difference, and there really is power to understanding it. And that it's possible that maybe God did design us differently so that we can take the time to actually learn something about somebody else, so that we don't put them into a box, but we see them as a unique creation made by God that we actually have to try and understand more so that we can serve them. One of the things that we try to clearly communicate at Love and Respect is that all men and all women need love and respect clearly, equally. We try to communicate that clearly, which I obviously didn't just do. All men and women need love and respect equally. But what we've seen in our own research is that when husbands and wives are having conflicts over the same thing, they will leave those conflicts, and 83% of men say they leave that conflict feeling disrespected, and 72% of women leave that same conflict saying they felt unloved. We both need love and respect, but there's something that happens in conflict with somebody that you trust, you love, that you're in a committed relationship with, and it's appearing through research, not just the research we've done, but the University of Washington has done, Dr. John Gottman. There's research that shows that these elements of what respect looks like to men and what love looks like to women in the commitment of a marriage will be indicative of the success of that conflict or the imminent breakdown of the relationship if those things are not present. So there's so much more in these books that will explain what some of these nonverbal and verbal attributes of love and respect are, but I just so long for 20-somethings to start looking into this now, because one of the things that I learned in college in my conflict resolution class, one of the first principles to coming to a resolution when you're in a conflict is believing that your co-arguer has value. And if we go into conflicts assuming that this person that we're in relationship with thinks and acts and processes the world the way that we do, we're going to only come to a head and we're going to go, they're crazy or they're a jerk. But if we approach it and go, maybe God designed them differently, and if we take the time to be self-aware, then we won't get exasperated, is that a word? And we can articulate, say, you know what, I don't think you intended to hurt me right now, but this is how I felt because this is how I process the world. And then you can also ask them questions and say, you know, as I'm starting to understand you and your needs, I feel like you interpreted what I just said or how my face just was, that it was disrespectful or it was unloving. Like, can you unpack that for me? When we start to use verbiage that relates to that language that person speaks, it is so successful. My father says, and my mother says, well, we're going to get in conflict. That's not wrong that you get in conflict, but are you going to take the time to understand the value of your co-arguer and try to come to a conclusion so that you can stop all the madness and all the craziness sooner? And that's what I think happens when we start to understand ourselves. And I think so many tools are in the Love and Respect content that I think will bring great healing to you and your relationship, but also a deeper understanding of maybe what happened in your parents' relationship. So that would be the one thing that I would tell 20-somethings. I guess it's two things. Don't label each other out of your own woundedness from something that somebody did to you. Don't put future relationships into that box. And take the time to start to understand how maybe God designed you as a man or a woman so that you can calmly articulate those things when you get into a relationship in the future, or if you are in one now. So thank you for letting me be a part of this, and best of luck to all of us as we try to navigate relationships.
Well, it's great to be here today with Daryl and Allie and talk with you all, or maybe I should say y'all, because I'm from the South. Okay, I live in North Carolina. Gary Chapman wrote the 5 Love Languages, wrote it for couples actually, but so many singles said to me, I know you wrote your book for married couples, but I read it, changed all of my relationships. Why don't you write a book for us? So I wrote the 5 Love Languages Singles Edition. Don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's there. And I use the concept of the 5 Love Languages to talk about all of our relationships. A lot of single adults, for example, have fractured relationships with their parents for various and sundry reasons. Sometimes the parents were at fault. Sometimes the young adult, did some things that just kind of cut them off from their parents. But I really believe that if we understand the concept of the 5 love languages and that each individual has a different love language, this can be a tool to help young adults either rebuild a relationship with their parents or enhance the relationship that's already there. Because let's face it, it doesn't matter how old you are, we need love. It's the most fundamental emotional need we have, the need to feel loved. And that's true in every relationship. If the significant people in your life love you, or I should say, if you feel loved by the most significant people in your life is beautiful. But if you don't feel loved by certain people who are important to you, then life can be stressful. So if you haven't read any of the 5 love languages, I'll first of all give you a little preview of the 5 languages, okay? 5 fundamental ways to express love emotionally to anyone, any relationship. Number 1 is words of affirmation. You look nice in that outfit. Really appreciate what you did. Just looking for things about a person you like and verbalizing. You could do it audibly. You could write it. I guess you could sing it if you can sing. But using words to affirm the other person. Then there's gifts. It's universal to give gifts as an expression of love. My academic background was cultural anthropology. Did an undergrad and a graduate degree in cultural anthropology. We've never found a culture where gift giving is not an expression of love. It's universal to give gifts. The gift says, he was thinking about me. She was thinking about me. And for some people, this is their primary language. This is what communicates to them. And then there's acts of service. Doing something for the other person that you know they would like for you to do. It can be helping them with computer. It can be anything that you know that they would like for you to do. If your mom, when you go over to visit her and she says, honey, could you fix the light, or could you do this, or could you do that? She's asking you for acts of service. She's really asking you for love. And you may get the feeling like, every time I go over there, Mama's always want me to do something. Well, Mama's begging you for love is really what's happening. So there's acts of service. Then there's quality time, giving the person your undivided attention. This is the person who, what makes them feel loved is when you sit down and have lunch with them, have an extended conversation with them, or take a walk down the road together. It's giving the person your undivided attention. And then there's physical touch. We've long known the emotional power of physical touch. That's why we pick up babies and hold them and kiss them and cuddle them. And long before the baby understands the meaning of the word love, the baby feels love by physical touch. And in all cultures, there are appropriate physical touches and there are inappropriate physical touches. And inappropriate we call abuse, but appropriate, it's love. So out of those 5 languages, each of us, married or single, young or old, each of us has a primary love language. One of the 5 speaks more deeply to us than the other 4. Now, we can receive love in all 5 languages, but if we had to give up one, we'd give up this one. That's our number 5. It doesn't mean much to us. But we would never give up number 1 because that's what really makes us feel loved. It's very similar to spoken language. Every one of us grew up speaking a language with a dialect. I grew up speaking English, Southern style. But everyone grows up speaking a language with a dialect. And that's the one you understand best. Same thing is true with love. Now, once in a while, someone says to me, I don't know, Gary. I think 2 of those just about equal for me. And my response, fine. We'll give you 2 love languages. We'll call you bilingual. But most of us have a primary love language, and then a secondary love language, and then the other 3 fall in line under that. Now, in a marriage, if I'm talking with married people, almost never does a husband and wife have the same language. And that's why in a marriage, often couples miss each other. But the same thing can be true in every other relationship. You see, your mom and dad may love you, and you may not feel loved. It's not because they don't love you. It's because they're not speaking the right language. You're not connecting. And the same thing is true. You may love your mom and dad, but they may not feel loved because you're not speaking their love language. Typically, we speak our own love language and wonder why people don't get it. Well, it's like, I'm speaking Chinese to you, but you don't understand Chinese. So we have to learn to speak the language of the other person. Now, this has application in all human relationships. I'm talking about parents, but it's not just parents. It's college roommates. Ever wonder why some roommates make it, some roommates don't? Often because they don't feel appreciated by the other person. In a roommate situation, we'd probably call it appreciation rather than love, but it's still the emotional sense that the other person appreciates me, respects me, values me. That's what we're trying to communicate. It also applies to work relationships. In fact, some time ago, I teamed up with Dr. Paul White, a Christian psychologist and who's had 20 years experience with business, and I wrote a book called The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace, taking this same concept in work relationships. But it also applies in dating relationships. As you know, typically, if you're going to go out on a date with somebody, you have to have a little tingle inside. You don't go out and have hamburgers with just anyone. You have to have a little tingle inside. So that's where it starts. We go with this little tingle. And sometimes on the first date, you lose the tingles. You find out that something about them you can't tolerate. And therefore, when they call you for a hamburger next time, you're not hungry. So that relationship never gets off the ground. But there are other relationships. Every time you go out for a hamburger, it gets tinglier and tinglier and tinglier. And one night, one of you says something like this: I think I could love you. You're testing the waters to see if they feel what you feel. And if they give you a positive response, such as, what would be so bad about that? Ooh, you have a tender evening. And the next time the moon is right, you'll likely say the words, I love you. And you wait for them to say, I love you too. Wow, now you know you got it because you said it out loud. And from that moment on, you literally get obsessed with each other. You can't get them off your mind. You go to bed thinking about them. You wake up thinking about them. All day long you think about them. They are the most wonderful person you've ever met in your life. Now, your mother can see their flaws, but you can't. Your mother will say, honey, have you considered they haven't had a steady job in 5 years? And you will say, Mama, give them a break. They're just waiting for the right opportunity. But here's the problem. In our society, we have given the idea that this experience that I've just described, which we call falling in love, is the foundation for a happy marriage. Well, what happens? We get married because we're in love. But after marriage, we come down off the high. As a matter of fact, we've studied it. The average lifespan of the in-love euphoria is 2 years. Some a little longer, some a little less, average 2 years, we come down off the high. And what happens? We begin to think, Mama was right. They're lazy. And we see all these things our friends told us, and now they seem to be true. So we have to understand that when you come down off the high, this is where the 5 love languages becomes extremely important in a relationship. Because if we're missing each other in our expressions of love, now the euphoria is gone, and we see the flaws in each other, and we end up arguing with each other. And before long, we're wondering, why did we get married? And you've seen it in your friends. I mean, you have friends who've been married, and 3 years later, they're divorced. It doesn't have to happen. If we understand that the in-love experience is temporary, and once we come down off that, if we can speak the right love language, we can keep love alive in that relationship. So I hope that that'll help you in your relationships before you get married. I hope it'll help you after you get married. Some time ago, just a year or so ago, actually, I wrote another book. The first one, the one I've been talking about, is called The 5 Love Languages Singles Edition. But I wrote another book called Things I Wish I'd Known Before We Got Married. I asked myself, what are the things that I know now that had I known them before we got married, it would have made my marriage a lot easier. And one of them is exactly what I've explained to you. I wish I had known, for example, that the in-love euphoria was temporary. It's not an adequate foundation for marriage. It's highly possible to fall in love with somebody you shouldn't marry. Wish I'd have known that. And I wish I'd known that there's two stages of romantic love. There's the in-love stage, and then there's the more intentional stage that I described, learning how to speak each other's language and choosing to do it. And when you do that, it keeps the love tank full, and now you can process the rest of life in a positive way. But there are other issues that I deal with in this book that I really think you would find helpful. One of them is, I wish I'd known that the old saying, like mother, like daughter, like father, like son, is not a myth. If his father's an alcoholic, there's a good chance that in 10 years, he will be an alcoholic. If her mother interrupts her husband when he's telling a story, and she says, "No, honey, it wasn't Thursday night, that was Wednesday night," she will interrupt you when you get married 10 years from now. You see, we tend to follow the pattern of our parent. Now, when I say that, singles say to me, wait a minute, you don't mean I have to end up being like my father?" And my answer is no, you don't. But now is the time to change that. You see, if your father's an alcoholic, now's the time for you to study alcoholism and for you to learn new ways of processing stress so that you're not likely to follow your father's pattern. See, what we've said in recent years in the Christian community is you've got to have premarital counseling. But I'm telling you, the time to prepare for marriage is not after you get engaged. The time to prepare for marriage is now. You may not even be dating, but you need to be getting ready. If you want to get married someday, you need to be getting ready now. And one of the things is to look at if you're a guy, look at your dad and say, what are the things I admire about him and I'd like to duplicate in my life? And what are the things that I don't want to duplicate? And those are the things you need to be working on now. Because if you just go into default 10 years from now, you'll be just like your father. So, same thing is true for you gals. Look at your mother and say, what are the things I'd like to emulate? And what are the things I don't want in my life? And begin doing whatever you need to do, reading, studying, going to classes, praying, and changing those things so that when you get there, it's already changed. Another one is, I wish I'd known how to solve disagreements without arguing. You see, when I got married, I never anticipated that we would have any arguments. Because when you're in love, you'll do whatever the other person wants to. You know, it's fine, honey. Yeah, we can go to the races. Yeah, I just love to see those little cars run around the track. You don't like that. You know you don't like that. But you're in love. You do it. So what I'm saying is this. If you don't have any plan for handling conflicts and differences in a marriage, what are you going to do? You're going to end up arguing. Because you see, all of us know when we have a conflict that we're right. I mean, my way's right. I mean, why would I have it in my mind if it wasn't right? And so what do? We explain it to them. And if they don't agree, what do? We explain it again. And every time we get louder, and before long, we're yelling at each other. We never intended to. It's just that's the way arguments go. And you don't ever solve anything by arguing. You end up saying hurtful, painful things, and you both withdraw in silence, and you resent each other. Wish I'd known how to solve conflicts without arguing. And the key issue that I deal with in that chapter is learning how to listen empathetically. What are they saying? And where is it coming from? Where did they get that idea? And what are they feeling? And how can I understand what they're feeling? You see, if you don't understand each other, you're never going to find a meeting place. So you have to learn how to listen empathetically. We don't know that by nature. By nature, we listen long enough to give a response. And we don't learn how to listen empathetically. That is putting yourself in the other person's shoes, trying to look at the world through their eyes. Given their personality, given their history, how could they say that? How could they think that? Well, there's a whole lot of other things, and our time's going to be gone here in a minute, but I wish I'd known that forgiveness is not a feeling. You see, all of us have been hurt. There's not anyone that hasn't been hurt somewhere along the line. And when we get hurt, we have anger, and we express that anger in different ways. The anger is actually a gift. It's supposed to motivate us to try to set things right. And if someone has hurt you, the scriptures say you go to them and you say, look, I'm hurting. You confront them. That's what Jesus said. And if they apologize, you forgive them and you let it go. But forgiveness is not a feeling. You see, if they admit that they're wrong and you choose to forgive them, it doesn't mean you won't think about it again. It doesn't mean that all the painful emotions are just going to go away overnight. But whenever the memory comes back and the pain comes back, you just say to God, you know what I'm remembering and you know what I'm feeling, but I thank you. That's forgiven now. So forgiveness is a choice to lift the penalty and let the other person back in your life. Another one is, I wish I'd known that toilets are not self-cleaning. We got married, and 6 weeks into our marriage, I said to my wife, honey, the toilet's dirty. We just had one. And she said, I know, honey, I was wondering when you're going to clean it. And I said, I don't know how to clean toilets. And she said, I can teach you. Now, obviously in that chapter, I'm not really talking about just toilets. I'm talking about everything in life. Who is going to do what after you get married? I thought she would clean the toilet. She thought I would clean the toilet. You see, there's a whole lot of things that have to be done after you get married. Somebody's got to buy the food. Somebody's got to cook the food. Somebody's got to wash the dishes. Somebody's got to vacuum the floor. Somebody's got to, all those things. Inside the house or apartment, outside. Who's going to do what? So here's my assignment in that chapter for couples that are thinking about marriage. Make a list of all the things that will have to be done. Who's going to wash the car? Who's going to get the oil changed in the car? All those things. Make a list. And then separately, individually, you take the list and you put your initials beside the ones you think you're going to do, and put his or her initials beside the ones you think they will do. And if you have this idea that you're going to do them together, like we're going to cook together, you can put both of your initials, okay? But underline the one that you think is going to have the main responsibility. Then come together and see if you agree on it. And maybe you agree on half of them. But the others, you need to talk about and decide, well, who is going to clean the toilet? Now, it doesn't mean you're locked into this for a lifetime, but it does mean you're going into marriage on the same page, and you're less likely to have conflicts in the early days of the marriage. Well, I don't know, Daryl, how much time do I have? We're about to get through here? Okay. Well, there's a whole bunch of other things in the book that I would encourage you to read. I think you'd really enjoy this. And you don't have to be engaged to read this. This is for college freshmen. This is for anybody that thinks someday I'm going to get married. It's called Things I Wish I'd Known Before We Got Married. Well, it's been great to be with you today, and I hope that not only this, but all the other aspects of this program are going to be helpful to you. I want to encourage you and affirm you in what you're doing in just being involved in this, because let's face it, most people your age are out there doing all kinds of stuff. They're not trying to learn. They're just trying to live life. And many of them are going to mess up their lives before they get to be 25. You're trying to learn. That's the way to go. God bless you.